You're good to go.
Okay, thank you. We'd like to welcome everyone to the November 3rd, 2025 regular council meeting for the village of Belcarra. We wish to acknowledge that this meeting took place on the unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples. Come to May Layton, where Belcarra is home to the ancestral village of the Tsleil-Waututh Nation. We're thankful to conduct our work within their territory. So I'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. And approval of the agenda, I'll read out the motion and then look for a seconder. The motion is that the agenda for the regular council meeting of November 3rd, 2025 be approved and circulated. And I'll look for a mover and a seconder.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
that would be a tie. We'll go with Riziki and come back to you another time. So, any discussion on that? Seeing none, I'll look to call the question. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and it carries. Adoption of minutes, special council meeting, public consultation on the draft 2026-2040 financial plan, October 2025. And the motion is that minutes from the special council meeting, public consultation on the draft 2026-2040 financial plan held on October 20th, 2025 be adopted. I'll look for a mover on that. Clark, thank you. And seconded.
Riziki.
Thank you. Okay, it's on the floor. Any discussion on that? It's, but thank you for being here. Okay. So I'll look to call the question on that. All those in favor? Say aye, and it carries. Okay, so the regular council meeting, October 2025. The motion is that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on October 20th, 2025 be adopted and moved by Bart, thank you. And second, okay. And I would like to amend the minutes and read out the following amendments if I could. I want to bring attention to that the line in the mayor's report reporting that I attended an SPFD meeting on October 7th, 2025 was stricken from the record as no fire service review meeting was held on that date. And that in the public question period section, as response provided to Klaus Beaver, the text referring to the availability of October 7th meeting minute. Excuse me, meeting minutes and recordings to be stricken from the record as there was no meeting on that date. So I'm going to ask if there are any further amendments or questions or comments from council.
Yes,
Go ahead.
I would also like to make an amendment to the minutes. In my council report, I stated I attended an SVFD meeting on October 7th, 2025. I would like the minutes amended to read that the date of the SVFD meeting I attended was September 11th, 2025. My apologies.
Okay, so I'll see if there are any further amendments or questions from council. I don't think there are. Following the amendments, I'm going to ask the corporate office.
Mayor, could you ask for a motion to move the amendments and a seconder?
So moved.
Move and
Second.
Ricky seconding. Okay. All right, so they're on the table.
You want me to read the motion?
Yeah, please.
So the motion as sits now is that the minutes from the regular council meeting held on October 20th, 2025 be amended as follows. That the line in the mayor's report reporting that the mayor attended an SVFD meeting on October 7th, 2025 be stricken from the record as no fire service review meeting was held on that date, and that in the public question period section as a response to a question asked by Klaus Beaver, the text referring to the availability of October 7th minutes and recording be stricken from the record as there was no meeting on that date. And further, that in Councillor Wilder's report, the minutes be amended to read that the date of the SVFD meeting attended by Councillor Wilder was September 11th, 2025.
Okay,
And just to vote on that motion.
okay, so look to call the question. All those in favor say aye. I know that it carried. All right. Yeah. Okay, and then the main motion is I'll call the question. Oh, I'll read it out and look for a mover and a seconder, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on October 2025 be adopted as amended.
You don't need a mover
Oh.
or seconder, it can just be carried
Okay,
or voted on.
all right, so I'll look to call the question. All those in favor, say aye. Okay, thank you. And then we're on to public input. So a period of 15 minutes will be made available on each regular council meeting agenda for members of the public to make submissions to council. Any person wishing to speak during public input period must so indicate by raising their hand. Each person will be permitted 2 minutes to comment on items presented on the agenda. A second opportunity to speak is permitted when all other interested parties have had an opportunity to provide their comments. Comments must be directed to the chair of the meeting and not to individual members of council. Public input period is a venue for submissions in the form statement. Questions can be directed to question period at the end of the agenda. So do we have anybody that would like to make a statement?
Hi, Penny Mullen, 3845 Bedwell Bay Road. I just want to remind everybody that they're invited to attend the Remembrance Day celebration on November the 11th at Valcara Regional Park at 10:30, which is hosted by the Port Moody Power and Sailing Squadron and our own Dan Greenwood and Shelley Heron. There's lunch held afterwards, so bring your first aid by donation.
Good, thank you very much. Any other people like to go ahead, please?
Yeah, Ian Devlin, 3552 Main Avenue. I'd just like to comment on the active transportation network plan that's on the agenda today. I found that very informative, a very long report, 188 pages, but filled with really good information for the only issue that I'd like to raise for council's consideration is the linkage between the OCP and this particular report. Particularly the OCP is no longer a draft. It's been passed into law, so it's a bylaw for us. So I'd like to see a little stronger linkage, if you could, in this transportation network plan, particularly bringing it back to section 4, which is a mobility section of the OCP. It's very extensive number of policies in there, 45 altogether, but in particular, the section M22 basically outlines, I think, the focus of what this report contributes in the linkage back to the OCP documents. It's very well done, by the way.
Thank you very much. Do we have any further speakers that would like to speak? So I'll take that as calling once, calling twice, calling 3 times. Thank you very much. Okay, and delegations and presentations, we don't have any delegations of publication. Items on consent, there are no items on the consent agenda. Correspondence, no items. Recommendation to receive items on consent, and we don't need to do that. But that's correct. And correspondence proclamation action item. Staff reports. We're going to ask Ken, if he could, to introduce the item.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening. The report on the agenda outlines the upcoming audit process, and Asifa from KPMG is here this evening to present her audit planning report, which is the beginning of the audit process. As council knows, staff prepare the annual financial statements. And KPMG provides their audit opinion on those statements. And so the beginning of the process is the audit planning report that is now coming forward. And Asifa is now going to present that audit planning report for council's information.
Okay, thank you very much and welcome, Asifa. Good to have you here.
Thank you. It's good to be with you here this evening. I'm going to share my screen so that you know which pages of the report I am presenting on. It is a pretty standard report, and I know council has seen something similar before, so I'm not proposing to go through every single page. I will give you a bit of a summary, and then I'll open it up for any questions that council or others may have. On this page, we have basically our highlights. The scope of our audit is unchanged from prior year. It is the audit of the annual financial statements, as Ken mentioned. In order to inform this audit planning report, we have had a planning meeting and discussion with management. So we are aware of some of the changes that we expect to see in some of the financial results. And of course, we'll continue to monitor that as we get to year end and into the audit. Materiality is, of course, a concept we use in financial statement audits, and it really gives us a basis for the depth of our audit work in certain financial areas. Based on our current very simple estimate of what we believe the expenses will be at year end, we have estimated a materiality of 64,000. Now, that's certainly not set in stone. When we get to year end, we will look at what are the actual expenses and recalculate our materiality. Should it change, we will report that back to council as part of our audit findings. Based on our understanding of the transactions for the year, we don't anticipate having to involve any specialists, and that's why we've said here for the involvement of others, there is none. In terms of accounting and auditing standards, not much has changed from prior year. There are no new accounting standards and only very, very minor changes to auditing standards. So we're really not expecting it to have any sort of impact on the process this year. That being said, I will say in future years, there continue to be a lot of activity by the Public Sector Accounting Board. So we'll continue to provide updates on that. If you do want additional information, Appendix 2 has some information about upcoming accounting standards. But again, nothing imminent that will impact this fiscal year. On the right-hand side of this slide, we have what we call our preliminary risk assessment. Consistent with prior years and all audits that we do, regardless of an organization, auditing standards require that we assess the risk of management override of controls. And again, I want to be very clear that we have no indications of management override at the village. This is a risk we have to have in all of our audits, regardless of the organization. There are certain prescribed procedures that we will perform as part of our year-end audit, and we will report back those findings at year end. The other risks of material misstatement is really just a way for us to communicate to you where we spend more of our focus during the audit. And consistent with prior years, we will be looking at capitalized costs, in particular, making sure that they do relate to capital additions and should not be expensed. We also do look at expenses being a high volume of transactions, and that includes payroll, of course, for employees of the village. And that is, of course, again, a standard area for most municipalities where we spend our time during the audit. Now, that's not to say these are the only areas we audit, but we wanted to really highlight these as they are pretty core to our overall audit. The only other thing I wanted to draw council's attention to is on page 10 of our report. We have our annual inquiries of council. We are required to annually ask council if there are any matters that they believe we need to know about as we begin our audit. And that could be any areas of risk or any unusual transactions or any known suspected instances of fraud. I will add, we have made these inquiries with management and there's nothing that they have brought to our attention. So I'll pause here and I would happy to take any comments that council has on these questions or any other questions they have just generally on our audit planning report.
We can open it up now to council then. So,
Motion.
So the motion is that the staff report of November 3rd, 2025, titled Financial Audit Process be received into the record for information.
So
Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Ruzicki. And so it's moved and seconded. So it's on the floor now. And then we will, yeah, so we can get council questions now. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Councillor Ruzicki.
just a question so on page 7, I was reading through the total forecasted expenses. Where it shows the difference between 2024 actual and what we forecast for the year. Does that look favorable? Like that to me looks favorable, but I just want to ask the question.
I will say our estimate for the 2024 year, it's a very simple extrapolation, so take it with a grain of salt.
Okay.
You know, certain expenses don't incur just evenly throughout the year. So it's really just the best estimate we have right now. Certainly over the last 2 years, the expenses have been pretty consistent. So again, that was going back to my comment previously of, you know, if we do see at year end, the expenses are different from what we've used right now, we will revise our materiality.
But for this version of it, it looks positive. Is that what I'm reading?
It's lower than prior year.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ruzicki. Anyone else? Okay, so one of the things that they asked on this is council aware of, or has council identified any instances of actual suspected or alleged fraud, including misconduct or unethical behavior related to financial reporting or misappropriation of assets? And I can say that I've never had any of that. Yeah, so, but if I did, I would look to come forward.
Thank you for that. And, you know, certainly we ask the question formally once a year when we present our planning report, but we're happy to hear from council at any time of the year, should there be anything they feel that needs to come to our attention. And our contact information is in the front of our report.
Right, good. Okay, so the motion's there. I'll look to call the question on the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I note that it carries unanimous. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Asifa? Are you still there?
I am, yes.
Yeah, we just wanted to thank you for your presentation. And the thorough picture.
Thank you. And we'll see you in a couple months for the findings.
We will see you in a couple months. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So Ken, on 10.2 financial plan, tax and utility rate increase, I'm going to ask Ken to introduce that item, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will share my screen. Can council see that?
Yeah.
So the report before council this evening relates to the 2026-2030 financial plan and the related or proposed property tax and utility rate increases. On October the 20th, council and staff presented the proposed increases to the public for feedback. Those increases being a 3% increase in property taxes, a 4% increase in water user rates, and a 5% increase in ward user rates for 2026. And the minutes from that public consultation are on the agenda. And on page 2 of the report, you can see that staff have provided the impact of these increases on a average value home in Belcarra of 2.595 million on a higher assessed value home of 5 million. And you can see that with the increases on a home connected to the water system, it works out to about a $220 increase, or 3% after one considers the property tax increase, the water rate increase, and the ward rate increase. And for a $5 million home that is connected to the water system, you can see that that's about a $320 increase, or 3%. And for a home not connected to the water system, the rate increase goes down to $197 for an average home, or 2.9%, and $297 for a home that's $5 million and not connected to the water system. So tonight, staff are seeking council's final direction in terms of property tax increase and rate and user rate increase to bring forward in our financial plan bylaw and our user rates bylaws that are intended to come forward for council for first three readings on December 1st of this year and subsequent adoption on December 15th of this year. So in the report, you can see that there is a motion for council's consideration in terms of the rate increases for 2026 and for beyond 2026, 2027 to 2030 for council to consider.
Okay, so we've got a motion and I'll look to Alworthy and Zetti. Okay, so and that motion is that the following property tax and utility rates increases be reflected in the 2026-2029 financial plan bylaw and amended fee charges bylaw. So it's on the table right now, which will, it's got a mover in a second, which will allow for discussion. So you want to go ahead?
Sure. Thanks, Ken, for this. And yes, sure, we did hear, of course, the public did have a consultation, and we only had the one area, of course, which is still out there, long-standing area of Far Cove that was brought forward. But of course, we would rather that we didn't have to go any increases. We would like, our preferred position would be that we are going to be just able to move forward smoothly. But if we're going to have them, and we have them, you detailed in your report very well, the rather significant increases we've had over the years, up to and including last year. And so to see this reduction is at least a bit encouraging, specifically in light of some darker clouds that may be on the horizon out there, which we'll be dealing later in this meeting, I think, a little bit on. But I think it's a good position that council is in. We're in a fairly strong financial position. We read metro increases coming up now. We know that that budget was passed, and so water will be going up, and we think we know how much by 2.5%, I think, or somewhere like that in the general. And of course, we don't have the issue of the wastewater that they have in Metro Vancouver, the big septic. But the award is coming down appreciably. There's a lot more can be done, I think, but there's a lot being done. And I certainly want to thank staff for the work they've done up there on that and keeping those costs down. And of course, the public, because their participation and ensuring there are no pollutants going in there is vitally important as we go forward. So they're just my comments. And again, thank you and thank staff for the work they've done over the years to keep us moving in what seems trending in a rather positive direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Elworthy. Any other speakers?
Sure.
Councillor Rossetti, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Ken, for putting in the higher value property assessment, because I think that there's a lot of those in the village, and I think it's important to understand the impact. And so I'm pleased with that. I'm also pleased with the fact that this is lower than it was last year. Because, I mean, I would love to have no tax increase, but I realize that's not realistic, so I'm pleased that this is trending in the right direction, so thank you for that. And also just, it's good to see clarity in terms of what the impact is on everyone in the village, not just, you know, part of the village, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Rozicki. Any comment? Okay. Okay, we're good. All right, so,
Mayor Ross,
yes,
through the chair. I think in the very first part of that recommendation, there's a typo. I just wanted to make sure that we correct it before the minutes go, before it gets adopted. So can, in the very first sentence, that following property tax and utility rate increases be reflected in 2029, should that read 2030?
yes.
Yes, that should read 2030.
Okay, so we can just make that as a friendly amendment, and I'll write that into the minutes.
Okay, so any other discussions, comments? Seeing none, I'll look to call the question. All those in favor, say aye, and carries. Thank you. We now are on to, thank you, Ken, and we're on to the active transportation network plan draft report. I'm going to ask Melanie to introduce that, please.
This report provides information on the active transportation network plan draft report, as well as some information on next steps. Staff brought forward a report on the active transportation network plan engagement results on July 2nd of 2025. And at that time, we shared the desire of residents for active transportation improvements that enhance safety for people who want to walk and cycle throughout the community. At the same time, residents emphasized the importance of respecting the community's rural character, managing costs, and recognizing the physical constraints of local roads. Council echoed these comments and recommended that the input be considered in drafting the ATMP draft report. So we're back. Village staff have worked closely with staff from our consultants at BUNT to prepare the active transportation network plan draft report according to the input and direction provided. I'm going to now turn it over to Jason Potter from BUNT, who will deliver a presentation with some highlights from the report. And we'll note that a copy of the complete report is also available in the agenda package.
Great. Thank you, Melanie. Is everybody able to hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you, yes.
Great. Okay. And hopefully you can also see the screen that I just shared.
We can, thank you.
Good. Great. Okay. Yeah, well, good evening, everybody. So thank you, Melanie. Yeah, as mentioned, my name is Jason Potter, and I'm a senior transportation planner and associate with Bunt and Associates Engineering. I last presented to council just over 1 year ago when we introduced the project and process. I believe it was last October. So since that time, we've worked closely with your staff to create the plan that I will walk us through this evening. So the following slides I have are all just snips from the report. So there'll be some smaller font that I will not be reading, but I just want to go over some of the highlights and sections of the report. Okay, so give me a moment here. Okay, so starting with the purpose to remind us all why we're doing this. So the Active Transportation Network Plan looks to integrate existing and in-progress transportation plans, policies, and initiatives. And the plan collaborates with the community to provide a prioritized list of potential active transportation enabling projects. And very importantly, this plan, it facilitates future funding opportunities. So by having this plan in place, you're able to access some important grant opportunities. Finally, this process seeks to bring together all affected and interested groups in a collaborative process. So just looking at the table of contents, so obviously start with an introduction and what is active transportation, goals and objectives. We move into Belcarra Now, which is the very important local context. Every active transportation plan is very unique, and Belcarra's is very unique for a very unique community. So with that, we look at the existing active transportation network within Belcarra. The third section is what we heard. And so that really speaks to the public engagement process. And I'll get into that in more detail in the following slide. The fourth section is future directions. So that really is the plan itself. So there's the improvement strategies, there's improvement projects, a list and map of those, and as well as the future network plan. And then finally, the fifth and final section of our report is implementation strategy. So that looks at the different responsibilities for different entities. It looks at funding opportunities, maintenance and monitoring, as well as next steps. Also importantly, there's 3 appendices in the report. So the first 2 appendices, they each speak to one of the 2 rounds of public engagement that we went through. And essentially those are often called what we heard reports. And then the third appendix is active transportation design toolkit that was put together specifically for Belcarra context. So that would give details on the recommended projects, as well as a few other, again, Belcarra specific designs that may be considered in the future. So this is the project process. So essentially 4 phases of our work program. I think here I'd get your attention maybe towards the bottom of the screen, which speaks to the public engagement process. So that started out last November with our first survey. That first survey was really asking residents just basically on their usage of active transportation, but also their concerns and opportunities. It included a map-based function where they could identify locations. And we had 143 respondents to that first survey, which in our view was very strong considering the population of Belcarra. That moved us to the second survey, which was in March, this last spring. I think it was open March and April. And that really looked more at the levels of support for specific improvement options. And that was supported with a community open house in your current location, where we were able to meet with residents and walk through some of those improvement options and answer questions. And I think we had about 25 attendees that evening. In terms of project goals, so of course to enhance accessibility and safety and connectivity, but also aligning with the broader objectives of the OCP as a comment earlier this evening. Specifically, we were looking to enhance active transportation safety, and also close active transportation network gaps. Those 2 objectives are common probably for all active transportation plans. Typically, the third one there is kind of connecting to your external. That was not a priority for Belcarra, just being Belcarra being as unique as it is and rather isolated in its location. But the following 3 goals speak more to the Belcarra context. So we wanted to also look at walking and cycling more for health and leisure, rather than just commuting and transportation. And being a smaller community, we had the opportunity to look at that from that perspective as well. And that includes access to parks and beaches and also the existing trail systems. Improvement strategies. So yeah, we realized quickly that in terms of kind of key origins and destinations, really a lot of people would be walking to transit stops along Bedwell Bay Road. So prioritizing safety along Bedwell Bay Road was a high priority, including speed reduction along Bedwell Bay Road. We focused on minimalistic design strategies, which is something we heard clearly through the public engagement process. We looked to leverage the existing trail network and also to adopt a phased approach to implementation. So that speaks to breaking down larger projects into smaller, more manageable steps that align with Belcarra's budget and can be incorporated into programs and capital projects. In terms of implementation strategies, this section here talks about details and design options for the recommended improvements. So on the left of your screen is a snip of speed reduction measures that were specifically recommended for Bedwell Bay Road. So those include reduced speed limits, for example, speed radar signs, pavement markings, and speed enforcement. And that's just one example for that particular item. On the right is a table of all the different recommended improvements. So you have starting on the right-hand side, you have the improvement category itself, and then you have the segment of road, the route that it's on, and then of course there's a map reference which connects to the map. So the map here is not a complete product. We were informed just this morning there are slight tweaks. D2 is not quite right, but we will be perfecting this as we finalize hopefully in the next couple of weeks. But what this does show also is how we categorize some of the projects. So we have Bedwell Bay Road projects, we have trail improvement projects, we have foreshore access improvement projects, we have crossings, pedestrian crossings and enhanced crosswalks, and then we have other amenities such as transit shelters and related improvements. And then, yeah, the final section of our report is the implementation section. And so this just quickly kind of takes us through a few of the main steps there. So identifying responsibilities, be it the village or Metro Vancouver Parks, TransLink, and the roles of provincial, federal governments. We have quite important section on funding and grant opportunities, partnerships, enabling strategies, and then we also speak about maintenance and monitoring as well. And then input, received from council will be considered in preparing the final report, and the plan is to bring the final report to council before the end of the year. And that takes me to the end of my slide. So yeah, thank you for your time and happy to entertain any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. And we're going to, we've got a motion here and I'm going to read it out and then request a mover and a seconder to allow for discussion. So the motion is that input provided to staff at the November 3rd, 2025 regular council meeting regarding the active transportation network plan be considered in preparing the final report. So moved by Councillor.
Kazicki.
Thank you. And seconded by Councillor.
Wow. Love it.
Okay, so it's available, it's on the floor, and we can ask questions. So Council, if you want to go ahead.
Sure, I'll start. So I don't really remember the background of this, but I think there was funding provided for this activity. Is that correct? It was grant funding. Okay, so I mean, this is an impressive report for sure. So I couldn't remember exactly what the background was, but I thought there was funding for it. And then in terms of going forward, if whatever we decide to do, where does the funding come from for that? Is it a shared responsibility between us and ICBC or who is it? So
Yeah, go ahead.
Through the chair, in the report, we detail a number of funding partners.
Yeah.
So one that we're working with actively every year is TransLink. They're providing considerable funding for the Bedwell Bay project as well as a number of other projects. We have the federal government that provides active transportation planning funding, which in part funded district court. Provincial province, also provides active transportation funding. ICBC has a road improvement program. Stuart and I are meeting with staff later this week, actually, to discuss the potential projects for that. And what's our other ones? We've got a few other.
So there's a number of,
but yeah, we're keeping our eyes on all the input deadlines for those and constantly seeking everything we can.
Okay, good. And in terms of, I looking through here, I was most interested in, I guess, in the community feedback and it looks like very familiar, very like we've seen this before. There's nothing terribly different. I mean, I was a little surprised to see, looking for some walkways or whatever on Belcarra Bay because there's no room for it.
Yeah.
But I understand it as well. Bedwell Bay clearly to me is the priority in terms of that sort of thing. But it was good to see, you know, the community input. So I was pleased to see that, and it wasn't surprising at all. I didn't see anything that was shocking. So anyway, all good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rozicki, and Councillor Clark, go ahead, please.
Thank you. So, see, I'm glad it was funded by grants. Yeah, it's a very complete report. I do agree with the public feedback. It's very much like my personal feedback would be. So minimalistic, design improvements, cutting the hedges, making some room. There's, you know, it's kind of hard when we say making some more room on the road, because at the same time, you want to have room on the shoulder. You also don't want to take too much room away from the road and the car spaces as well, because with the curves, that it feels pretty tight already. Like that would be my concern. I always, you know, my feedback was always that, you know, we have to try to get people out of that roadway as much as we can, from trails, out of the busy roads, so it's not so dangerous. One thing that I saw here, and I've been also saying, I think we need more, I saw in some part of the report, more enforcement for speed, right? So when there's car speeding, and I have seen like the police here in previous years, but I think it's good to have them around more. I think them in Anwar more, because there's school zones there. So I think, you know, it's the same police, right, that comes here, and then more is the same people. So it's, I think, you know, having them more visible would be helpful. I would be cautious, like, since you're asking for feedback from council, I would be cautious when it comes to painting new symbols on the road. Because, you know, we do have to maintain these things. When one part of the report suggests, paint a bicycle drawing on the road, right? To let people know that it's a shared road. We do know it's a shared road. I mean, you see if the bikers, you're gonna have to move over. So I don't know if painting too many more things, you know, I don't know. I feel like at the end of the day, we are a village. I just don't want this place looking like a city, you know, at the end of the day kind of thing. So minimal design improvements, I think is the way to go. So I completely agree. And taking care of the trails that we do have. But the trimming the hedges is a big one. It really is a big one, and it's from private property, right? So and I do see that some people already, especially people that are paying attention on council, have already trimmed their hedges. They have been, because it's been a talk, you know, for so long on the council table. So I do see some improvement that people take upon themselves, and staff too, that they're like, you know, you see them Brad and all of our public works, they're clearing the side to make it more walkable. So no, I completely agree. Nothing new for me as well. I feel like we've heard this before, but it's really nice to see a report that actually, and I praise, you know, the consultants for this, to see the actual answers of the people in the report. It's not always that we get that. We've done that a few times in Belcarra for surveys that we run, and I love when we do that. We give all the answers so everybody sees, not instead of staff saying, oh, this percentage likes the idea, this doesn't, right? So have the answers out there for people to see, and so great work, and looking forward to the final report. And I would add, to take the feedback from the public as far as like the linkage to OCP, from the couple of emails that we received, I do agree with them. So I think that will be useful for the final report. That's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Anyone else?
I have one more comment.
Yeah.
You
I
want
don't know, my.
Yeah, and then we'll take it.
Okay, so just the only other thing that came to mind for me is that, you know, again, you know, I run Bedwell Bay and Belcarra Bay every day. And so, in terms of the road safety, it's rare that I have a concern in terms of running along there. I mean, yeah, it would be awesome to have a little bit wider path. But at the end of the day, it typically, the people in Belcarra almost go in the other lane.
Yes.
To avoid me,
Yeah.
you know, and then, you know, it's the weekend warriors in the summer that you have to
Don't do that.
cry out for. And that's sort of the sunny weekends in the summer, but you know, that's what it is. But overall, I never feel unsafe running on that street. And so, yes, a little bit of a, you know, bigger shoulder would be fantastic, but other than that, I don't know what we need.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Rozicki and Councillor Elworthy.
It's more of a question. I mean, it's a great report, right? Trust me, it's marvelous, a lot in it, and thank you for that. Just on the funding issue, it don't me like, particularly with safety issues on, right? That's really paramount, I think, to all of us. You know, it's nice, of course, trails and to enjoy the beauty of the place and to enjoy it for ourselves. You know, primarily, I think is the way it's geared, right? Rather than invite tourists in to enjoy it. So it seems to me some years ago, through the chair, if I may.
Go ahead.
I wasn't here, but I listened to it all. And this is funding, TransLink funding in particular is my question. Now, TransLink, of course, like to fund their own road network only and projects in there, and they do provide it once in a while, but they did seem to have some program years ago where they would offer to fund, you know, something other than the roads themselves, i.e. pathways. And but the problem seemed to be, as I recall from the feedback from the villagers at the time, the Peter Council and all the rest of it, the problem was that TransLink wanted to institute some sort of a multi-use pathway, I think they call it, or something, and it wasn't to the liking of many people, you know, for all sorts of reasons, and to others, most of their liking, but ultimately there was a lot of money being offered at that point in time. But there was also going to be a lot of money required from us to do it, which was the objection, and the major objection, and you can see in this report, that's the objection that people have. Don't spend a lot of money on this, and for good reasons. We know what's coming here. Thank you. We like to keep the taxes down. And so I just wonder, does that come again through the chair? Maybe you can help that, being since you're on the TransLink board. Do TransLink come up with these programs again? And will they be programs that we can suggest, or ICBC, that we can put our input in? Because we've had input now from the villages. It'd be nice to see some of that input get in action. And it'd be nice to see funding for that action by people like TransLink, who collect a lot of taxes and a lot. There's never enough money for TransLink. We all know that. Insatiable. I know the history of that a little bit, I think. So I would just, you know, is that possible? Does that come up again? Was that a one-shot deal that they came up with, you know, 4 years ago or something, and said, here, we're going to fund a multi-use pathway from A to B. I know it wasn't this end of the road, further up, right? Along by the tennis courts, I think, or that area. I can't recall exactly, but did that come up again for us? I think it was $150,000 or $70,000 they were offering at that point. 170.
So you're quite right. TransLink actually has several funding streams through the chair to Councillor Elworthy. They have a bicycle infrastructure capital cost share program, which they call BICS. They have a walking infrastructure to transit program, which they call WIT. They have a major road network and bike program, which they call MRNB. And aside from that, they also give us operations and payment rehabilitation money for the MRN. Now that's allocated funding. Every municipality gets that allocated funding every year. There is criteria that they're striving to meet. They would like you to try and meet a certain standard for design. However, they are willing to be flexible when you've got constraints such as what we have. So we've already met with TransLink staff. I've been meeting with them for 10 years on these types of projects. We've got $700,000 towards the Bedwell Bay upgrade project. That's a $1.2 million project. The bulk of the cost is to widen the road just to get in the walkable shoulder. So the cost to build in a multi-use path would have even been beyond that. So we have to look at where these improvements are cost prohibitive or make sense. So that's the project that we have gone back to the consulting firm who's working on the design with us to apply this funding. TransLink has given us already allocated funding for the design for two Gabion walls at Kelly and Main, as well as the road improvements from Main to beyond Kelly Avenue. It actually goes to that turnaround at the Canada Post stop there. And that includes the walkable shoulder, but also pavement rehabilitation, drainage improvements, and crosswalk improvements, including a light. So residents will be seeing that shortly, and we are working with our TransLink partners to ensure that we retain that funding for that project and others in the future as well.
Well, that's good. That answers my question. Thank you very much.
Okay, good. Thank you. So I have some comments. I think there's been some good things done here by two groups for sure. Our staff does tremendous work on, I noticed the difference on the trees and what's happening. And I also noticed there's some people, and I don't know if they're hired people or they are people that just are here and they're doing it. But there's some incredible work being done, which is opening up that whole piece of a wider road, not by changing it, but by just having less trees and less stuff. So, I mean, there's one person, if we could get that person's name, we might be able to hire them if they're out for hire, but. So anyways, I think there's some good things happening. So anyways, thank you. You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so we are, any further questions from council? Okay, so we will look to, seeing none, we'll look to call the question on the motion. All those in favor, say aye, and it carries. All right. And we're now on, thank you very much. Appreciate your work
Thank
there.
you.
Yeah, very impressive. Thank you.
Right, have a nice evening. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Okay. Stuart. You're up, if you could.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Ross. The purpose of this report is to bring forward information on legislative changes regarding the province's Fire Safety Act. And also to recommend the appointment of our inspector for the village of Belcarra. The new Fire Safety Act was introduced in August of 2024, replacing the Fire Safety Act. Some of the key changes include the formal designation of inspectors and investigators is required by the municipality. A risk-based compliance monitoring model is to be implemented as well. There's also administrative penalties that can be imposed by the fire commissioner for non-compliance of inspections and other non-compliance issues. The act also contains enhanced evacuation powers for the fire chief and the municipality. Municipal council is now required to appoint a fire inspector qualified to the standards within the Fire Safety Act legislation. Municipal councils also have the option to designate a contractor to be their fire inspector if they meet the Fire Safety Act inspector training standard. Village of Belcarra has maintained an annual fire safety inspection program to date using the contracted services of Stuart Affleck, who works for Verisic Canada. Inspector Affleck does meet the requirements of the new Fire Safety Act legislation and has submitted the required prior learning assessment forms to the Fire Commissioner's Office for certification. Annual fire inspections in the village of Belcarra were last conducted by Inspector Affleck on September 19th, 2025. Out of the total inspections conducted, there were 21 imperative deficiencies cited. But the good thing is there were 8 buildings that had no issues noted as well. All building owners received an inspection report from the fire inspector. Letters were also sent out by the village on behalf of the fire chief with copies of the fire inspection reports attached. The fire chief, at his discretion, will order a remedy of specific fire hazards or impose other actions to be implemented within a reasonable time frame. The next steps for staff is we will be carrying out a review of the fire prevention and regulation bylaw number 627 with consideration for potential changes relating to the Fire Safety Act. Back to the chair, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Stuart. Appreciate that. And we'll look to,
I'll move it.
okay. You're moving and seconding it? Okay, so we've got Mark and Rozicki. And the motion is that Stuart Affleck, Fire Inspector for Risk Canada, be appointed as a contracted fire inspector for the village of Belcarra until further notice. So we'll look to call the question and get that on the floor. All those in favor?
Oh, You would go to discussions first?
No, I'm just putting on the floor.
But you're putting to a vote.
No, sorry, my apologies. I'm moving it onto the floor, so we can.
Okay, so it was first and seconded?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. So it's on the floor and it opens it up for questions. Councillor Elworthy.
Yeah, first or second, that's fine as well, but I am. The one question that sort of is lingering with me is the dollar figure attached to this, right? How much will it cost us for, I know it has, I'm in favor of it, trust me, I am. But do we have any idea of what this likely to cost and what I see it's not, I see there's penalties and that sort of gives me the jury, I hate penalties, but we have to put them in, right? I respect that, but what about costs? Through the chair?
And through the chair. If, just to clarify, if you're talking about the cost for the private fire inspector, once again, we've hired Inspector Affleck from Verisk every single year. And I can say that the cost for hiring their services has been consistent. I could give you a roundabout. It's approximately $1,800 per year.
Yeah, that's just small figure. I didn't want to put you on the spot. One other tiny little thing is that it was great to get a list of all the buildings. I mean, I begin to think when I looked at 21 buildings here and all of that issue, where the hell were the 21 buildings? Right? And then I looked at seeing, of course, that the Evangelical Layman's Church has the lion's share of all of that over there, right? So that, and I think my understanding is that that's because it's commercial. I would take it through the chair that's why that's listed as commercial property over there. Would I be correct in that?
Correct. Their business is in their public buildings. So yes, all of the buildings within Count Howdy would be inspectable buildings.
And then a follow-up with that, of course, that I know we have an agreement with them. Sorry about that, that's your mouse, Marlos.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So the follow-up will be then, they haven't agreed, I think that they reimburse back any costs associated with fire prevention related matters for that enterprise, that business enterprise.
And through the chair, I mean, once the deficiencies are cited or the fire safety hazards are cited, as we said, the letters will go out. It gets put in the hands of the fire chief to impose his orders. And we have at the disposal some fines that were adopted, I think in 2024. That provides an option or an incentive for the business owner to get the corrections done.
Yeah, thank you.
I could provide some further comments with respect to ELC. On that note, they said we've been working with them quite closely. They've actually already addressed their 2025 deficiencies. They hired Maple Fire Inspections, and so we submitted the reports. They've already got those checked out, fixed, and handed back to us. Village staff have also been working quite closely with ELC since May 2025 to address the other outstanding items on the property, which you refer to related to building permits and the upgraded fire suppression system. So significant efforts been made by the owner to meet the requirements set out by the village, and staff are quite pleased with the progress.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, good, thank you. Councillor Clark, go ahead, please.
First, before I forget, I want to thank our CAO because I love that every question that I've had so far has been answered, and I feel the same way with the public. So thank you. I just really want to show that appreciation. It's really that's why I'm more quiet lately. Want to make me quiet? There, you got it. The other thing I think also, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I agree with Councillor Elworthy because he was talking about costs. But every time there is an application, it's billed, the cost of staff time is billed back to the applicant. Would that be the case for this?
To the chair.
At this moment, the municipality absorbs the cost of hiring the fire inspector because it's not just for ELC, it's for all the buildings.
Oh, I see. So then it's built,
But you're correct with respect to the building permits.
Yes.
So those are billed back for staff and consulting time to support those. So you're right. Yeah.
So there's an offset and we're doing this because of higher legislation. I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
No.
Quiet.
you're quiet. We like that. Or no, we don't like that.
This way.
Yeah, it'll come, I get it. Okay, so, it's been moved and seconded by councillor, and are there any questions or comments from council? Seeing none, I'll look to call the question. All those in favor say aye, and it carries. Thank you. Okay, we're on to 10.5. Melanie's going to introduce the item.
All right, 10.5 is the Sassnet Volunteer Fire Department Service Review Conclusion Report. This report provides information regarding the service review as well as the next step. Additionally, it provides some information for provincial guidance regarding the formal closure and documentation of the service review process. And lastly, it's got information on the positive actions that can be taken by Belcarra to support the SVFD while reducing our current vulnerabilities and mitigating future risks. Now, while the service review has not resulted in an updated cost share agreement, the reason for pursuing it remains valid. The primary condition of a service review is for all parties to negotiate in good faith, making reasonable efforts to reach an agreement while respecting issues being addressed. This is not only a reasonable expectation of Belcarra, but one that's encouraged by the provincial government with respect to shared services. It is recommended that a request be made to the chair of the review body to formally conclude the SVFD service review, but importantly to document the review process and its outcomes in a final report. This is per provincial service review guidelines, and its primary purpose is for explanation to future decision makers and the public. Now, while we can't control the outcome of the service review, we can shift focus and direct our efforts as a village towards a number of areas to bring about some positive changes. So among these, Belcarra can continue to advocate for the use of reason and fair process in all our business dealings and partnerships. Our trustees can also provide a valuable role and voice at the table. As the design and construction of the fire halls move forward, trustees can advocate for prudent spending, for a focus on essential safety and functional upgrades, and for awareness of the ongoing operational and maintenance costs, which do escalate with both. They can also advocate for the exploration of options as well as creative approaches to solving problems and reducing costs. Staff, Belcarra Council, and residents can also collaborate on targeted initiatives to address current vulnerabilities and risks. One of this is increasing its number of volunteer firefighters, which is going to help the village fulfill its service agreement obligations, but also ensure that we have the capacity to operate independently should any party choose to withdraw from the shared service in the future. We've got a number of strategies outlined in the SVFD statements and facts brief that was included as an attachment to this report. And there's several approaches there that can be explored to increase our volunteer firefighter numbers in Belcarra. As a complementary effort, this includes engaging residents in discussions around housing opportunities in the community, such as coach homes and accessory suites, which can support community resilience and volunteer firefighter retention. Lastly, village staff and council can also actively participate in the search and preparation of grant applications. We can procure letters of support. We can also meet with grant funding partners to secure funding for the fire hall, as well as the other needs of the SVFD. Staff will be presenting council with information and recommendations to support focused efforts on these approaches in the next year. Back to the chair.
Okay, so thank you for that. And I'm going to read out the motion and request a mover and a seconder to allow for discussion. So the motion is that the report dated November 3rd, 2025, titled Sassnet Volunteer Fire Department Service Review Conclusion be received into the record for information, and further that a request be made to the chair of the review board body to formally conclude the SVFD service review and document the review process and its outcomes in the final report for provincial service review guidelines for explanation to the future decision makers and the public. So the motion is that. Do we have a mover and a second?
Second.
Okay, Clark and Rozicki, thank you. Okay, so we'll look to see if there's questions or comments from council.
That's a comment.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just want to say, you know, I really appreciate all the work on this, in particular from Melanie. I think that, you know, it's clearly obvious there's inequity in how this split is set up. And, you know, in terms of being fair and equitable in it, we're not there. We're not there clearly, and we're not going to get there with this, with, you know, the partners that we're dealing with. And I find that incredibly frustrating. I think if the tables were turned, Anmore would be pushing incredibly hard against us. And so, you know, we are where we're at. And I understand this is where we're going and I support it. But with, you know, real frustration, because I don't think it's equitable at all. And I think that, like I say, if the tables were turned, it would be a very different scenario playing out. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Rozicki. Appreciate that. Councillor Elworthy.
Yeah, well, I first and foremost, it is really good to have information in chronological order on this whole process, because there's so much misinformation goes around there. And so thank you for putting this together. So it's all in one piece, and it can certainly be referred to. I think it speaks for itself. I mean, the facts are facts. It's in there. One, you may not like them. Some people may not like it at all. Others may say they're disputable facts, but I don't think they look to me to be a factual report on what has happened and where we have gotten to and where we are now. And that's pretty interesting, because that's the sort of thing that bothers me a little bit now, just where we go, the nervousness I feel about you know, where the trustees, again, one of my questions through the chair would be, my understanding right now is that, you know, we're going to have a significant relationship here, because we're entering into a marriage where there's $22 million on the table that's shared between the parties, and that's the responsibility. $22 million is no chunk change. That's a fairly legal consideration of money, and I've always made it clear that my concern for indemnification for trustees and their security, for the trustees that are trustees to the Metro Vancouver Sassima Fire Services. They're not Belcarra trustees, they're not Anmore trustees, or nor is the one Metro Vancouver. They are trustees to that service. That's their responsibility. And when I see some comments in some of the presentations in these papers that we will direct our trustees to do something, I've got a very different view on trusteeship. That's all I can say. Because, you know, I believe the trustee's job and the role is going to be in there and do it now. And particularly with the conversion bylaw 1404/1924 here, that has just gone into place, where we have the maximum allocation and the maximum request, they call it, I think, in the clause, right? Whereby that enables, and that's been costed out in such a way that was not part of the letter pattern. That was something we had to put in order to go to MFA for the loan, and in order that Metro Vancouver can seek that loan out. That loan that will be jointly shared. Remember, it's 50-50, that's jointly shared. And the last I looked at the trustees' reports coming up is that's $22 million on the meeting that you were going to go to on November the 5th here to make a decision, probably, right? That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for the relationship to be splintered. And, you know, and it's very good that we can say, send the trustees and make sure we're getting fiscal responsibility. I don't think we should have to tell trustees that. That's the role of trustees. That's the role. They have a legal obligation. And, you know, don't forget that. And we did check into the legal, because this has got the ability to go somewhere different if it's not done right. Now, I'm happy with the togetherness. I think, you know, we've had our kick the can. It was worth doing. It's not unreasonable to try to, you know, get the best deal you can get, right? And whether the fairness and the equities are agreed to by parties is another. The arguments go on. It's going nowhere. It's not happening. I do like the fact that it's going to be documented. And we are asking that the British government, the provincial government, thank you, the provincial government here documented. So it's when it comes up again, and it may come up again in some other form. It may come up in the form, for instance, that what if they don't like the apportionment of costs on the operations? What if they think that operations, that's in a big trustees up, operations move? And what I've seen of the trustees meeting, that it's us against them. This is not us all working together. This is us against them. And that, that we can't win that because Metro Vancouver is always with them as chair. They are, that's just the reality. Tell me one motion that we were, when we walked into that room, that didn't get shot down because of a biased chair. Let me be clear on that. And I guess I don't want to get too irate about this because I'm obviously it's been at a distance. Now let's get it together. Let's figure out how we're going to do this. But I would like to make sure that we're getting that the feeling of comfort tonight because I'm nervous. I'm nervous for the residents of this village here. That we're going into a huge amount of money here. That's going to be going into our pockets and we're going to be paying out here and it has to be done. Nobody's arguing about it, right? We see the cost that they're looking at here. And so I would say, let's get these assurances that we are going to get fairness in trustee decisions. I want to know that. I want the trustees to all sides. I don't think we should be directing trustees. I trust the trustees to do their job. Unless I've got a warped version of trusteeship. And having been through a lifetime of trusteeship, I sincerely doubt that I have. And I think any legal body who deals with it, whether it be Lawson Lundell, the experts in law, would come along and say, yes, trustees have a role and responsibility, and let them live up to the role and responsibility. And I encourage our trustees to continue on with the great work of living up to your responsibilities, right, when you go in there, and encourage others to do likewise. Because that way we can truly move together. We can truly have that report for down the road if this comes up again. It's been 40 plus years and it hasn't come up. 1977, those homes were built, right? It's time to move on. And it's time I shut up and let everybody else out there say so. I thank you, Chair, and I thank you, Madam CAO, for your work on this and putting it together. I will certainly keep the documents all together in my files for safekeeping and reference. I hope never to need them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Elworthy. Do we have other speakers?
If no one else, Carolina.
Sorry, yeah, just a quick comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
I thank you, Melanie, for your work on putting this package together and all your help throughout this. It's good that we have this and it's good that's made public. Like this to me was always very important. And the rationale for it is it's obvious, it's in the report. Something that we can always come back to. This information will always be relevant as long as the split it is what it is. To address some of the comments I heard, and also just to finish this on this being public, it's good because you're right. There's a lot of misinformation going out there, and unfortunately, on Facebook pages, social media, and then I get asked, why don't you go there and answer on social media? You guys, you can always give me a call. I will always answer here because I don't do politics on social media. Sometimes I put a comment or another, but I think it's really important to respond here too. So this, I hope with this, the misinformation will stop for a little bit. There was obvious reasons why this was done. As far as, that there's a trustees meeting coming up on Wednesday, right? And it's going to be in Animal Hall. So I hope I see a lot of the residents from Belcarra. You were talking about the costs that's coming in. There's huge costs coming. We know that. In my view, and I'll leave most of my comments for Wednesday, but in my view, too much. Honestly, I've said that many times. It's no secret to anybody. I've said that many meetings and said, if we approve 20 million, we're spending, close to 20 million. So I think, anyways, I'll save my other comments for Wednesday. But yeah, so people have to pay attention. But also, I'm going to encourage everybody to, like it's a small village. You can always talk to your counselors. You can always, like my phone number is on the website, on the like all over. And you know, get the right information. It doesn't mean because somebody sat on council here for a year and a bit that they know everything they're talking about just because they made a page on Facebook. So I wanted to highlight that. They really don't, and I'm really surprised that they don't. So I think, you know, it's great that this is made public. And I'm very surprised that those pages haven't put this report online yet. I don't know why. Anyways, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just you wanted to speak?
Yeah, just a final
And then
comment.
I'll
So,
then I'll speak if there's no.
yeah, and I think that in terms of this whole topic, I feel really strongly it was council's responsibility to defend our community. And I think we took a run at that. And when you talk about good faith negotiation, well, that takes two parties. So not sure that that was even possible, but anyway, we took a run at it. Now we know where we stand, and we certainly know where we stand with our partner in this as well. And I think that's important. So you need to know what you're dealing with, and now we know. So, but anyway, I mean, I agree with concluding it.
Yes, thank you, Councilor Rozicki, and we're good with other speakers. So I would just say that there's a piece here where I think we would all look at what our preferred way would be. And it would be, I think, for me, that the two groups that should be easiest to get in a room and work out things would be volunteer fire departments. To me, it just makes sense. But I've been around a lot of places where sense doesn't carry the day. And so, you know, I'm going to show up on Wednesday with the other trustees, and I'm looking to make this work, and I'm looking to make it work with the folks that are going to be at the table. And we actually, the three trustees, have an ability to be there and to make comments and to do things and be independent and also do what's known as a fiduciary duty. We are able to do that. So, and I really appreciate the counselors that aren't at the table, but are here and are very vigorous. And I want to thank all of you. And that's a good thing to have. Okay, so any other comments? So the motion's on the floor, and if I'll look to call the question at this point, all those in favor? And it carries unanimously. Okay, thank you. And then we're on to bylaws. We have no items, and release items from closed council meeting, no items. And then we have the mayor and councilor reports. And I'm gonna do some of these, but I'm gonna leave a couple of them for, I think. Did you want to speak to some of these?
Just so it's Saturday,
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
but we can and I'll just join and do your comments.
Okay, so I attended the following events: the October 22nd Metro Vancouver Board Meeting, October 23rd Translate Mayor's Council Meeting, and the Metro Vancouver Council of Councils Meeting, and October 31st, the Metro Vancouver Board Meeting. And in addition, I went to, and I want to thank Crap, I went to a wonderful fireworks display. It was pretty impressive. The weather seemed to lift, and it was beautiful being out on that wharf. It was lovely. The other part I would say is on November 1st, I attended the anniversary of the West Coast Express, and I would say it was impressive. And I always find things that rejuvenate me. And there was a West Coast Express 30 years. And it was amazing because, you know, there were political people that went up and got their pictures taken, and that was really good. But prior to that, they had this dais where there was a microphone, and there was, I would say, in the time we were there were hundreds of young kids who went there at the place where right after them were going to be the politicians getting pictures and speaking. And they went up there with their moms, their dads, people that cared for them, and they pulled that microphone over and they just kept doing it. And I think at some point they almost, it was close to when the politicians came and they kind of moved out of it, but as soon as they left, they got right back on it. So anyways, did you want to?
Oh, it was amazing. So I went together with Mayor Ross downtown. They had a special West Coast Express on Saturday. Normally only runs Monday to Friday for business downtown going in and then at the end of the day coming out. But on Saturday they had a special one. And so it was packed, absolutely packed. It was a family event downtown. It was hosted on the platform where the train comes in. They had the original train there at I'm not sure if you all watch CBC or the news, what have you, right behind where all the dignitaries were. And for photo ops, and the train, I tell you, it was like, holy Moses, it was crazy. And they had, oh my gosh, they just had so many activities down there for it was they had face painting and they had music and they had cookies. I guess I gave Graham a cookie to eat. Cookies, and they had the place where their presence giving out reflectors. They're promoting safely, and anyways, but the highlight for me, this. So these are. I don't know if any of you go on the West Coast Express or use transit and you have a little pass, a compass card, which is a flat one that goes in your wallet.
Is that a seniors one?
No, I have a seniors one. I do. I do have a seniors one as well. Like seniors ones are orange. And someone said, why is yours orange? Because I'm an old lady. But anyway, these are actually compass cards. You put them on the keychain and you just tap these. And I said, I have to have one of those. It's just the lineup to get these were, it was at the waterfront building, of course. And so it was all the way out the end, past it, heading towards Steamworks, snaked around the building, all the way around the parking lot, around Steamworks, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people to get one of these little commemorative compass things. And I got sell it. No. Yeah. No. But anyways, it was a really well run event, and they had the train going back at 3:00. We left a little earlier and used Sky Train to come back, but it was great. TransLink. I use TransLink a lot, and West Coast Express. When I worked downtown at the law firms, that was my transportation of choice. And I just think the transportation network that we have in Vancouver is world class, absolutely world class. And for the cost of it, it's amazing how they can get from point A to point B in no time flat with minimal damage to our pocketbooks. So anyways, it was a great event, and I'm glad it went. I wanted to support them because I love the West Coast Express, as you can tell.
Similar to Lisa, I spent about 5.5 years the West Coast Express in my way of going downtown where I was working. But what was really interesting is that I was saying to Lisa, I met a lot of people from Belcarra when I was there, and didn't know they were from Belcarra, but ended up talking because you can sit. So that was a nice memory for me.
Yeah, it's a great way to commute. I'll tell you, it's just brilliant. And what was really fun too is that because it was a big family event, there was a lot of these families that were on the train, and they're double-decker trains, that had never been on the train before. And it follows the waterfront all the way. It's a beautiful trip.
Yeah.
It follows like from Port Moody, into waterfront. It follows the waterfront all the way, and it's just brilliant. And the people had cameras and video cameras. Like they're going, oh my God, they were just amazed, absolutely amazed. It was a real fun event to attend. I'm glad we went to support, on behalf of Belcarra, representing Belcarra for the 30 years anniversary. Amazing.
Thank you. And we'll go to the Chief Administrative Officer.
Well,
My apologies. I didn't see your hand. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
sorry. I may not have put it up.
That's okay.
So just a couple updates. So the HGTV hometown takeover. Dug into that a little bit, put together a submission. The submission is in. And I want to thank Ian and Penny for their input and Ralph as well. So we have a submission in. Unfortunately, as Penny and I sort of dug into, I don't think we're going to qualify. And the reason is that the way they fund the makeover is the business community, and we don't have one.
Oh.
And so basically I wondered one of the reasons they asked about a main street early in the, sort of nomination process. And it's because what they do, the payback is really that the businesses get exposure. And so it's in there, like, who knows what'll happen, but and I have some beautiful photos of our community. I mean, honestly, if it was just based on beauty alone, we could. But I think they're looking for like a financial contribution from the business community. So unfortunately, probably not in the running. Having said that, I really appreciate the time and Ian and Penny and Ralph's inputs, because I think it's an awesome submission. So that's the update on that. Just the only other thing I wanted to say is that I really want to thank Public Works, because I was less than 2 weeks ago. It was, I don't know, 10 days ago or something, and a tree came down on Belcarra Bay Road. And so the first I knew about it is one of our neighbors, Julie, your neighbor.
Yeah.
She's trying to get to work and there's a tree down. And so she's got it out on the local Facebook thing. And by the time I'm out of bed, it's clear, like the road is open. And I'm like not even out of bed yet. So thank you, Stuart. That was like amazing response. And I think as we get into storm season, that's kind of important for people trying to get to work. So appreciate that. Thank you.
And
That's it for my update.
And just on that,
Yeah.
to remind, because not everybody knows we have the emergency number. So there is an emergency number that we can reach out to staff if there's an emergency with the roads or water. So, and it's on the
Clearly it
website.
works. Clearly it works.
Yeah. So
Thanks.
24 hours, yeah.
Thank you, Janet, and thanks for your work with what you put forward.
We're trying.
In the
It's
end,
an awesome thing.
Yeah.
It's an awesome submission, right? Isn't it, Penny? Yes.
Yeah, really,
It really is good.
good
But
for you for going for it, all of you.
anyway.
And thanks, Carolina. Okay, and we'll go to our Chief Administrative Officer.
For operational and administrative updates since our last council meeting on October 20th. We continued with flail mowing as well. There's the leaves keep falling, so we're continuing with catch basin and the road not to remove the leaves and fallen debris and make sure our CVs are clear for the heavy fall winter rain. We had the water service repair on Turtlehead. Thanks to our Public Works, who responded very quickly to get that up and running again. SCADA system repair work is ongoing at Strathcona. We had 2 tree cutting permits. We had 2 tree hazard site assessment, processed a road use permit, 3 call before you dig responses. And of note, residents are probably aware of our mixed recycle bin that was damaged by the bears. So we've now had that repaired, and staff are looking into more robust replacements with our supplier. We hope to have those soon.
Go ahead.
Is that okay?
Yep.
So to the CEO, it just came up. So there's another water breakage on Turtlehead, I heard. So anything happening out of the ordinary? Because it feels like this has been happening more often. I lived here for all these years, and I feel like this last couple of months has been happening often. Is there something to it? Is the pressure somewhere too high? And it's
Something in the
breaking
water?
things? I mean, no, because there has been breakage and leakage, right?
Yeah.
So I'm starting to think there's something wrong.
Well,
Oh, no, this is.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
They were two completely different issues. One was a failure of a component, the first one. The second
Yeah.
one was due to a contractor.
Okay.
No pattern yet.
Okay, because I noticed too, sometimes the line breaks or something where there's the connection to the house and, okay.
But we have, right now, we've got inspections ongoing on all the service lines, just as a safeguard, so. Yeah, fine for us as well.
Okay, yeah, I was a bit nervous for a second, like, no, not this now. Okay, okay.
Okay, so you're finished.
Yes, back to the.
Okay, good. So, thank you for your question, and we are now at, we don't have any notice of motions going forward and public question period. So the public is invited to ask questions of council regarding any item pertaining to village business. A person wishing to make a submission will be limited to 2 minutes, and the submission must be in the form of a question. A second opportunity to ask a follow-up or new question is permitted if no one else is waiting to participate. Questions, including follow-up questions, must be directed to the chair of the meeting and not to individual members of council or staff. If a question or questions to staff arises during a public question period, the question or questions must be addressed to the chair, and the chair can request clarification from staff. The total session is limited to 20 minutes and will be completed by 11 p.m. unless extended with the approval of council through an affirmative vote. So we will look to see if we've got any people that would like to ask a question. Go ahead.
Jim, 4505 Valcarvia Road. Actually, this is the question I asked last time. What date have you set to start selling road ends to support the financing of the new fire hall?
Yep, to the chair. I'm currently working on a road ends update report. I believe I mentioned that forthcoming before the end of the year. So I've been in touch with the consultants to get an update on their work. And I'll be walking you through the next steps, which include the road closure bylaw, survey and subsequent steps. So stay tuned for that, and I'll bring you a report with all of the information for the end of the year.
Is this the report we're waiting from one of our consultants that we've had ongoing for the last 6 months?
Through the chair, this will bring you an update on their work, plus all a bunch of next steps I've been working on with them as well. So
Okay, have we set a deadline for their reports?
Okay.
Pardon me, but
the deadline for the reports is by the end of year. I've committed to bringing you that information by the end of the year. So we've got 2 council meetings left, December 1st, December 15th. To get you a comprehensive report, I'm targeting the 15th. So happy to take additional questions at that time.
Okay, thank you. And anybody else with a question? Go ahead, please.
Klaus Beaver, 3720 Marine Avenue. First of all, I wanted to make a comment before I ask my question. One is that this was an exceptionally productive meeting. It was, we've been away for a couple of months, and it's been just amazing how much work was done in this meeting. And it was done in very good time. One of the lessons of the 20th century for me and for the British is that the British have great regrets that they ever taught the Irish to speak English. And that was demonstrated on taking those comments that were made by the councillors together. The question I have is, once the chair of the service review committee has said that the process is ended, will council provide the support that you all need to learn the lessons from the meetings we do not have information about? Will all those in-camera sessions that this council may have had over the past 2 years be made public? And will you advocate to your best effort to allow those other agencies who, such as Metro Vancouver, to also make any meetings that discuss this topic become public? And I would ask that this include the in-camera video records.
Okay.
So that's my question. Well, is it possible for the village to have that information which they need to move forward and learn from the lesson we've come to?
And we've got an answer for it, and our CAO will answer this. Okay. Just got to flip the pages.
Yeah. All right, here. So through the chair, that's precisely what we're asking for. It's Metro Vancouver's meeting. They administered it. Therefore, the request has to be made to them to release the information, pull together this this document, which is the final report. The review body is documented in the beginning of the report. It consists of the Metro Vancouver Chair Hurley, the two mayors of Anmore. It also included the deputy CAO, Ravi China from Metro Vancouver, and Brant Arnold Smith, who's another staff from Metro Vancouver. Together, they make up the review body. So the request from Belcarra following this meeting and subsequent to council approval is that the review body document the results and every step of the process in a report. So I've detailed those here. I'll read them out for clarity. They're from the provincial guidelines, which will be an attachment to the report. And it specifically speaks to the documentation providing lessons for the future and documenting the description of the review process, definitions of the problems addressed, the fact sheets for each service, the description of the options, an outline of the evaluation criteria, the results of the evaluation, the description of the agreement reached, and summaries of the discussions at the facilitated meetings to your last one. So that's the request to the review body. It's quite detailed and specific. And that's the letter that we'll be going forth and advocating for.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Getting that information would be very helpful. I hope that my question wasn't lost to the effect that it has on the meetings that this council had in camera from the time this process began. It's those meetings, the in-camera meetings of this council, that should also be included in the release of information to this public so that they could understand where the process took whatever steps it took through that process.
Yeah, sure.
Recording.
Okay, just go ahead, please, with your follow-up. Did you?
No, that was it.
Okay, so
I just don't want that point to be lost.
and we've got an answer for you from Marcia.
And to your point, details regarding the individual meetings and the correspondence right now have not been included because they do pertain to negotiations that were administered by Metro Vancouver. So they first need to release that information publicly, either through a final report document or otherwise, in order for us to do the same. They're still tied up as part of negotiations and they haven't concluded their service review. So that's where we're at, and we're going to try and get the information released.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else in the gallery that would like to follow up? Go ahead, please.
Since we've known for many years that we'd be having to either maintain extensively or replace the fire halls, how much money do we have in reserve funds established so far for replacing the fire halls?
Okay, our CEO will speak to that.
So this item was brought up in the financial plan. So if you'd like to check back to the last couple of reports, we spoke specifically to the fire hall funding, or you can follow up with me afterwards and I'm happy to provide that to you as well. Obviously, we've had recent discussions that have centered around the accelerated timeframe for the replacement of the two fire halls. In our financial report, we noted that the scope and the magnitude of the fire halls are still under consideration, part of which is going forth this week on Wednesday, and are not being confirmed. But once confirmed, we will have a plan developed to fund the fire hall replacements, and these are typically through loans, through special levies, through grants, or a combination. There is a particular section about large infrastructure replacements in the financial plan report that talks about these types of multi-million-dollar replacements not typically funded through reserve. They typically are through special levies or loans, given their magnitude. So.
So, right,
Sorry.
may I try?
Yeah, but just, can we hang on and then we'll see if we're finished on that and then we'll come to you. Because it really is from the gallery. Go ahead, please, Jim. You have something?
So, you're talking about one form of financing. You have on your agenda to sell properties as well, in an agenda?
Through the chair, yes, we also have that. So like I said, it'll be a combination, some from reserves, because we do have some reserve funding. Some will be from loan. one advantage we do have is financing through Metro Vancouver for the fire halls. So we've got long amortization periods and way better rates than we would ever secure on our own. So that's one advantage of staying. Obviously, we'll be looking at any and all grants. I will be actively looking for those myself, and working with Metro Vancouver staff. And also a combination of special levies, which may show up as fire hall funding, as a special tax. So that's the package we're gonna put together. You will see that come back through, council as a report as we move forward in the process.
Well, hopefully they will include such a thing, like, we went underwater last time. We set up a fund to advance pay for a certain amount of people, that discounted toward the fees totally. So I hope you'll incorporate that option as well.
Certainly take it under consideration.
I mean, not everybody wants to start paying long fees. It should be considered. It worked last time, we had about 35 or 40 people pay up front. Yeah, that's what the total cost, a lot of money.
You take money?
So I think we clearly heard what you've said, and at the appropriate time, we will get back, okay? So do we have any, and thank you for all the speakers, do we have any of the speakers that would like to have another go? I'm sensing that maybe we're okay, and so if I can, I'm gonna ask Councillor Clark, because we've called, so there's no more speakers, and Councillor Clark would like to make a few words, and then we'll go to the other part of this meeting.
Yeah, thank you. I just heard a question of how much we have in reserves for the buildings of the assessment, for those buildings for the new halls. We have $1.633.08 million at the reserve for the Saskatchewan Volunteer Fire Department. I'm seeing here on my notes from the last meeting. We asked that question, so $1.633.08. So $1 million that we have for now. And it will increase a bit what we're gonna collect next year.
Okay, so we have, thank you very much. And thank you.
Can I clarify, is that for the fire department or was that for the village?
The fire department.
Okay, so that's split between.
Yeah.
Okay, and thank you, everyone, and we're at the point where a motion to adjourn. Is there anybody that would be interested?
So moved.
Move, seconded. Everybody in favor of that?
Yeah.
Aye, okay, thank you. And thanks to everyone for coming out tonight. Thanks for all your work and.
Like melting.
I took the report, I took.
Yeah.
I saw this.
Yeah.
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 I want to
So
say.
yeah, there will be a fine.